So, after careful examination of the mystical tradition, it becomes evident that refulgence in occult literature is used as a common signifier of the dragon and is typically visualized as the Oribus, a device identified with the angelic host or watcher. So, in other words, the Oribus itself designates the shining one. A shining one is a cognate of a watcher, a sentinel, or a dragon. This is a type of angelic deity which is underscored literally with a god, theos god, theros watcher, therion a beast. In the Aramaic, Yahweh is identified with Aya, the verb to be, but is concordant with Aya, which is a type of goblin, from Aya, a serpent. So there is this relationship, if you like, with the halo, which is used to personify or represent these angelic beings, the circular ones, the shining ones. Now, the circular mascot of the serpent in particular is represented as the Ophanim, the ones belonging to the spinning or flaming wheels, metaphors equated with a heavenly vessel identified with the angel watcher or seraph. As already elaborated, the Hebrew word Sabaoth, the angelic host, literally a crew of a naval vessel from the etymology sevet, a crew, is a cognate of Sopheth, a watcher. So therefore, the implication is that the angelic host are the one and the same entity as the seraphim, from the etymology shaft to sea. These are sentinels, these are watchers, theos a god, theros a watcher. And as we said, the term watcher is thematic of the dragon and the boat, which are both implicit of the angelic vessel. So in other words, of angelic visitation, closely accorded with the Ophanim, pictured quite literally as the wheels. Now, we can see then that there is this relationship between the angelic host, the watcher, and the dragon. So, for example, if we break down the etymology, we see that Sopheth, a watcher, is a variation on Sabaoth, the angelic host. In other words, a crew of a naval vessel. And Sabaoth is concordant with Teba and Ark. The same correspondence is found with the seraphim, the flaming ones. Again, the esoteric signifier is of the eye, the shining eye, shaft to sea. But the device shaft to sea is closely equated with Saphan, a sailor. In other words, this is a navigator of a ship, and Safina, a ship or a large vessel. So summarizing the above word list, it is clear that the rendition of a watcher is another term for a seraph, which is a permutation of an angel or a sailor, a conscription of the host. Now, in general, the seraphim in the Bible are depicted as radiant and are a militarized force that proclaims the sanctity of God, to quote Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. So if we just go on to Isaiah. So Isaiah writes, "Above it stood the seraphim, and one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of the whole earth is full of his glory." So the angelic host in this respect are these naval vessels, these angelic vessels. Now, as we can see, the seraphim is the highest order of angel and is indeed represented with the watching eye. So therefore, the wing of the seraph is accorded with the eye, which would identify Drakos, the eye, with Drakon. So therefore, this is an esoteric signifier of the seraphim or the dragon's bloodline. Now we can see that the seraphim is translated as the flaming or the burning ones from Serapha, fire, and is symmetrical with the verbal root seraph, burned. So we see that there is this inferred connection with Sirius in the Greek, meaning the scorching one, the burning one, the blazing star Sirius. Now, in essence, the seraphim denotes a type of iridescent seraph or sentinel, equated with the Arabic etymon shaft to sea, and is evocative of a fiery one termed as a watcher, as we said, a deity. These designations, as I have highlighted, cross-compatible with the Erin, which is a shining one or the watcher, and is personified as a snake, dragon, or Elohim. Now, the same comparisons of the watcher linked to the seraph is also evident in the Greek language, and we find the same wordplay between ops an eye and ophis, a serpent. It is depicted variously as drakon, from the verb dirk, to watch, dirk, to see. Now, these reptilian entities are ascribed to angelic beings or deities, a concept clearly elaborated in the following word list. So I'm going to draw the audience's attention now to the idea that the watcher is the same as a deity or a dragon. So we can see from the Greek perspective, drakon is a watcher from the verb dirk, to see, Greek drakos an eye, which is the classical noun. Now, also we see that there's this relationship between theos, a god, and theoros, a watcher in Greek, which, if we look at the list here, which is connected to therion, a beast. In other words, the connotation is of a dragon or a sentinel. Now, the same wordplay is found in the Semitic. Elohim, a god, is therefore a variation on Erin, a watcher or a shining one, and Awim, a serpent. So the serpents themselves are watchers, they are sentinels. And below we have the correspondence with the seraphim, which are the flaming ones, the burning ones. The connotation has this connotation of Sirius. Sothis is Sirius, and we can see this correlation with the etymologically with the shedim or the jinn, which, as I said before, were the flaming ones, the shining ones, which are inverted. But we see again this connection with theos, god, and theoros, a watcher. In the Semitic, the seraphim, the flaming ones, and shaf, to see, concordant with seraph, a radiant serpent. And if we begin to look at Egyptian symbology, the symbols begin to make sense, because if we look here at the slides, we can see that the serpent is resting on the horns. Now, the Hebrew word keren, a horn, is a wordplay on koren, which is radiance. So we can see here that Aphra viper, Ophir, to shine, is therefore resting upon on the horns, which is a signifier of light of the shining ones, which, as we said before, were registered with the solar disk. But the solar disk itself is connoting this angelic vessel, this knowledge which is seen as being bright. And again, the signifier of light is closely connected both with the watcher and the dragon, as found in the depiction of Sobek, this crocodile deity. But when we look at the Aramaic also, we see that there's a correspondence between Rak, which is feathery, and Ruach, a spirit or a demon. So again, we're dealing here with the jinn. This is a representation of the jinn, which can be represented in this context as the crocodile or the dragon, but as strong associations with the Ophanim and Apha, which is a viper. So, as I've shown, analysis of related vocabulary suggests that the seraphim are a type of seraph or deity. They are one and the same word. And in a similar sense, the seraphim, the burning ones, are descriptive of a shining seraph. As I said before, one which connotes a seraph which originates from Sirius. Otherwise, the seraph is a dragon and is similar to the Ophanim, the circular ones, a cognate of Aphra, a viper, emblazoned as the grey or the shining one. So again, in the ancient Semitic, the terminology, the grey one, the shining one, connotes Aphra, a viper. As previously recounted, the Ophanim, the circular ones, are linked to the obscure noun Ophir, gold, from an unused root, to shine, and each are attributions of Aphra, a viper. Otherwise, the seraphim, the shining ones, Erin, the shining ones, otherwise Elohim, a deity. As we can see, these are all renditions of the radiant seraph. If we look at the slide, we see that there's a connection then between light and the deity. We looked at the connection between the deities and the watchers. Now we can see that there's also this connection with light signifiers as well. Light typically represented with the halo, but the halo is this signifier of the circular ones of the Ophanim, which are identified with the lineage of the seraph. So again, Theos, a god, is identified with Theoros, a watcher, and Phos, light. The corresponding wordplay in Hebrew would be Elohim, gods, Erin, a watcher, and Erin, a shining one. Otherwise, the Elohim themselves are typically identified with the highest rank of angels, the seraphim, the flaming ones, correlated both with Shaftasi and Seraph, a fire. As I said before, these are crew members of vessels, Safina, a boat. Again, the Ophanim, which is a term for an angelic vessel, is a cognate of Aphra, viper, and Ophir, the shining one. So the dragon itself is typically represented with light signifiers. So the bright halo is either combined with the serpent, or the halo itself is this esoteric signifier of the lineage of the dragon. Now this is where it gets very interesting, because in a modern context, the classification of the Ophanim, a type of angel, is redolent of a flying saucer, an agency that is attributed to a grey alien, a type of crew member of a vessel propagated in biblical symbolism as the host. As I said before, the host in Latin, a hostess, refers to an alien or an invading force. So this is this is a military force, but it is an alien or an invading force. Now, the analogy between the Ophanim, the circular ones, and its cognate Aphor Grey is significant as it demonstrates the juxtaposition in the occult tradition between the symbol of the dragon, Arabic Aphor, a viper, and its counterpart Aphor Grey. So in other words, we can represent the shining one. It's interchangeable with the grey one in the Semitic symbology. They are one and the same thing. Now, this strange being in the ancient Semitic is viewed literally as a type of Coruscant or glittering serpent, and is another term for the seraphim or fallen angel. Now, the connection between the Elohim, a watcher, and its manifestation as a seraphim represented alternatively in the modern idiom as a grey alien is given in the following comparisons. So we're seeing here that the same signification for a grey alien is found with the deities, and that there is this correspondence. So for example, if we look at God, which is a watcher or a shining one, and the comparison to a deity and a grey alien, we see that there are some very interesting analogies which we can draw. So for example, Theos a god, Theoros a watcher, and Phos light. Otherwise, in the Semitic, Elohim a god, Erin a watcher, and Erin a shining one is found in its corresponding wordplay, greys, gaze, which is to watch, and glaze, which is to shine. So, in summary, to the table, a deity in the ancient world can be described succinctly as a watcher or a shining one, and are terms that are mutually compatible in the modern idiom to a grey alien. In much the same way as a god, the grey is depicted semantically as a watcher or a shining one. And in the occult tradition, the grey alien is often seen by witnesses to shine, or as this translucent effect. Now, this being is shown to be similar, at least linguistically, to its counterpart, the seraph or angel. So there is this crossover between, as I said before in the Semitic, the colour Aphor Grey, Ophir, which is to shine, and Aphor, a viper, and their correspondence with the Ophanim, which are the circular ones, which is a noun which is used to depict the angelic vessel, the Ophanim, the circular ones, the wheels which in the visions of Ezekiel are said to have transported Ezekiel away. Now, as with the angel, the grey alien is equated with a heavenly vessel depicted typically as circular or round, and is conceptualized anatomically as different from a human being. So, as we found in the Aramaic word Zari, an angel, and Zari, an alien, the two terms are interchangeable, we find this correspondence in English. We refer to these entities as aliens because they are strange, they are different, they are unlike a human being. Now, the analogy of the luminescent silver or grey deity, obviously there is this crossover with the alien being, and we can see that there is this close affinity with the veneration of the dragon. But there is also, at a semantic level, this correspondence with the shining star Sirius, which I want to now show and demonstrate this correspondence. So, as we said before, Sirius in the Greek is Sirios, which means scorching. Now, in the Semitic vocabulary, the resemblance between Aphor Grey and Ophir gold or to shine is repeated in the Latin translation, incandescent, glowing from candescere to become white or grey, and appears in the Latin feminine noun canicula Sirius, termed variously as Canis Major or the dog star. Now, the dog is typically identified with angelic messengers. So, for example, Kabi is a messenger, translated in the Greek as Angelos, an angel, but is identified with both Keb, a serpent in the Old Semitic, and Al-Kalb, the dog star. Now, the dog typically bays at the star Sirius, so this is why the identification of the dog is correlated closely with representations of Sirius. In addition, the dog's tongue is very reminiscent of the serpent tongue as well, and so we see this crossover in the Greek mysteries between the dog and the representation of the Gorgon and the extended tongue. So there is this correspondence between the dragon, which is an entity depicted as the shining one, variously grey or serpentine, and is remarkably similar to their modern counterpart, a grey alien. In particular, their bright mascots, their wheels or circles, which are shown to be astrological to the dog star, accredited with angelic ships, variously the shields or chariots of the gods. So, if we look at this table here, we see some interesting correspondences. So, for example, the angel is holding the hand of a child. The connotation, as I said, is of this angelic abduction. The child is represented as the lineage of man. The lineage of man is seen as being naive, childlike, undeveloped, and the angel here is represented as grown, as large, and so there is this correspondence. Now, as we see, the angel is wearing red and white, so this angel here is of a mixed lineage. It's an Adamic lineage, which is represented by red, denoting Adam, and then white we've got, which represents the seraphim, the shining ones. And as I said before, the term white or grey, and we've got the grey wings there, which would identify this with Sirius, the dog star. And indeed, we have the representation of the dog. Now, the star Sirius itself is is a binary star. There is some argument to say that that the third star is a hidden star, which would make sense because then we would have three representations. We would have Ruber Canicula, which is the ruddy star of Sirius. We have Canicula, which is the bright blazing star of Sirius, and then we have the one which is hidden, which is in this respect is identified with the jinn, personified as a nocturnal angel. The Shedim correlated with Sauda black, but is an inversion of the seraphim, Serefa fire, but fire connoting the birth of the jinn, which they are said to be born from smoke. Again, the Arabic word drak, smoke, is a reference in Greek to drakon, which is a dragon. So hence the dragon is a fire-breathing animal, because he is represented as shining, he's represented as bright. So the picture itself is indicative of this angelic lineage, and we're seeing here the symbology crossover with Sirius. So for example, we have Canis Major, which is the dog star. In the illustration, cross-referenced with the white dog. We have Canicula, which is Sirius. Candace is to become white or grey. As we said in the Greek, Sirius is the scorching one, and we've got Soros, which is represented as the lizard. In the Semitic, this would be the seraphim, the shining ones, and Seraph, the serpent. Or the correspondence would be Aphor, which is grey, and Ophir, to shine. As I said before, the correspondence between the grey one, Aphor, would be Aphra, viper, and the Ophanim, which are the circular ones, the shining ones, the ones that revolve.